Okay, I get asked the question all the time. Can I put this motor into that car? No, that's not the question I get asked. Although it'd be awful fun, wouldn't it? This is a V10 Viper motor. We've been doing a couple of these. This is an Audi V6. What I'm talking to you about today is, what's the difference? What's the difference between a remanufactured motor and just a used engine? Well, the first difference is I know exactly the specifications. We've built this to spec, meaning we've overboard it, put larger pistons in it, rings. We've custom built the thing. New bearings. It comes with a warranty. Our gas engines come with a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty, and so this engine comes with a warranty. A junkyard engine, it comes with, I like to say, a pat on the butt and a good luck charm. Basically that's what it is. Now, a lot of junkyards will give you a 90-day parts only warranty. And that's pretty scary for a shop, because if you've ever done an engine, you know that they don't come in and out with, Velcro and a couple of zip ties. It's a lot of work. And so you want to know that the used engine you're getting is good. How do you know that? How do you know that? You do a little investigation. Every junkyard, sometimes they can produce the amount of mileage on the car. And if you're dealing with I shouldn't say junkyard, I mean to say salvage yard. As a salvage yard, sometimes they have access to how many miles the car had on it. But sometimes the car has been totaled or something, the wire and harness is cut, and there's electronic dash, and of course they don't know how many miles is on the car. So they can look up like registration or something like that maybe and get close to it. So that's one way that you want to do that. But then again, what do you know about that engine? Ready? Nothing. You don't know nothing. You don't have access to the guy's service and maintenance and repair, and did he maintain it and things like that. So you get these engines and it really is a crapshoot. You're just like, will this be okay? Because all you usually get, again, is a 90-day part-only warranty. So if you put all this engine in, get it in the car, and all of a sudden it doesn't run right, and you come to find out after you diagnose why it doesn't run right, that you got low compression in the cylinder, you could have a blown head gasket, you could have timing chains that were stretching or rattling, you got a bad tensioner, because you couldn't run the engine. You got it shipped on a crate, and this is what you got. That's a scary thing for a shop. So what do? Every time we get a used engine, we will hook them up and run them in our sim test machine. Now, this used engine is getting ready. We've got a motor in here right now. We got a Duramax, looks like an LB7, and we're getting ready to run this in the sim test machine. And you guys, if you watch me, you know that I put a plate on the back of them here. And then there's a coupler that I'll attach, and then I'll drive this motor with, this thing's got a 25 horsepower motor. Oh, here's a coupler on this engine that we're getting ready to test. So we've put a coupler on the back of it, and I can spin that motor up, just like I can do on my used engine. When we get ready to do that, and we'll show you a video of that. And then what we can do is we can run a compression test on it. We can also check our timing. We can check our VVTs. We can energize them on and off and see if they're moving. We can check for oil pressure to make sure that at 500 RPM that I've got good idle oil pressure and I've got no problems there. We'll take off the oil filter after we run that. Now, that's a good point. Let me explain that. When we get a used engine, I don't run it off of the oil that I have in this tank. I won't do that because I don't want to contaminate that. This tank has got 50 gallons of break-in oil in it, and I don't want to contaminate that. I have 3 filters. It's got a super great filtration system on it, but I don't want that. So I will always test the used engine complete, meaning the pans on it, the oil cooler, the oil filter, and then I will cut that oil filter open and inspect it. So that's something that you can do if you've got a shop that has that capability if you're getting a used engine. These are all, I'm giving you help and tips to say if you're going to go that expense to put an expensive, because a used engine is not easy again. It's hard to get in and out of that car. And so you want to make sure that before you put it in, that you've got all your bases covered. Compression, valve timing is right, oil pressure is right, and the cooling system holds pressure. So we'll pressure test the cooling system. We'll block off all the holes, and we'll run it up to 20 PSI and let it sit for an hour and make sure that we've got no leakage on it. That's the problem with a used engine. Not that we don't do them, obviously I do them, and I usually do them on these Europeans because a European engine, to build it, remanufacture it, it blows the guy out of the water, and the car doesn't become worth it, whether it's a Mercedes, an Audi, Volkswagen, BMW. They're pretty rare to build the guys unless they want a performance build on it. And I think that's about the difference on it. That's what you want to look for. That's the downside to a used engine. You've got 90-day part-only warranty, no labor warranty. And with the remanufactured engine, you've got a 3-year parts and labor warranty. And you know what you're getting. Consideration, usually there's 3 considerations: time frame, cost, and quality. Those are kind of the things that you're thinking about, is like, do I go with used or do I go with the reman? So I've already established that usually if you're going with used, it's because the cost of a reman is too much. But you want to really look at that, because sometimes it's not. Usually on European it is too much. But if you're on a diesel truck, our diesel, we never do a diesel engine. By the time you buy a used one, they're as expensive as one I can reman for you and give you a full warranty. The other time frame, if it's a one-off engine on a European, the time frame is going to be a couple of months. If it's our diesel line, it's half that. Then quality. You can inspect the quality, like, run the tests and everything on the used engine and visually inspect it. And when you get it, if you see an oil seal leaking, you can replace it while the engine's out. Or you can, upsell the customer and say, look, we're going to replace all the seals, the oil pan, the front and the rear main, the valve covers and things like that, and then charge the customer additional for that. Plus you get a look inside the motor. So those are considerations that you want to think, but really, get the quotes, do the math up against it, and then make that decision. Is it worth the risk to get a used engine when a remanufactured engine is really not that much more when you're getting the better warranty? Now, I know a lot of guys out there are doing used engines. Tell me if you think my thinking is kind of off. Let me know in the comments. I read them. I'm going to read this because this is a good topic. So we put this used engine up in our sim test machine. We call it our wet bench. And we spun it up, and we had low compression in this. This would be the passenger side cylinder in the middle here. We leaked it down, which basically means you put the piston at top dead center on a compression stroke where all the valves are closed, add compressed air into the hole and listen to see where it's coming out, and it's coming out the exhaust valve. So we called the salvage yard, who I deal with, and they're good people, and they said they've got another one, they're pulling it out of a vehicle. We're gonna get that used engine here, and we'll spin that one up, and I'll show you that one, and we'll see if that one passes the test. Sometimes when these engines sit around in the junkyard, out in the open, they get water and moisture down in the spark plug. If you have that, you don't want to just pull the plug out of there, you want to blow that out of there. So you can make sure that you blow that out of there, just put a rag over the top of it. You need to get a vacuum, because sometimes there'll be quite a bit of it. That's a real important thing. So when you get these used engines and they've been open to the atmosphere, you want to make sure that before you remove a spark plug that's got a bunch of dirt and matter on top of it, that you don't pull the spark plug out, because where's all that dirt and matter going to go? Right into your used engine. Not a good thing. So the question is, new or used? Reman or used? Those are your options. Those are your questions when you're dealing with a customer, financial constraints, okay? Especially on European engines. On European engines, Bob, how many European engines do we build here in a month?
None.
None. Well, maybe we do a little.
Maybe Mercedes.
Yeah, we do a few of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do a few of them. But in comparison, it's like 2 to 3% of what we do in American gassers and, of course, diesels. It's not a lot. And the reason is, my parts gal here will tell you, it's so expensive. The parts are just, it blows you out of the water. And by the time you do it, it's cost prohibitive. We've got this in my sim test machine. Most of the time we'll run an engine in here and we'll use the oil that's down in the sump here. There's 50 gallons of break-in oil. Very clean, very expensive, and there's a triple filtration system on this, so that oil is continually being filtered. However, when I do a used engine, And you guys have watched enough that you've seen when I'm doing a remanufactured engine in here, it looks totally different. It doesn't look complete like this. And so when we're doing a used engine, we'll only do a used engine in this, and we'll contain, so we keep it closed loop. So all the oil pans on this engine, the oil filters on it, we're going to run this engine off of its own oil, not off of my oil system, because I don't want to, if this has an issue, I want to keep it contained inside the used unit. There's 3 things you really want to check on a used engine. You want to check compression. So we've got the spark plugs out of this, and we're going to run a compression test on this motor when we spin it up. You want to check oil pressure. You want to also check the cooling system to make sure that it doesn't have any pressure loss. So we're going to add pressure to the cooling system. We'll put 20 psi to it and make sure that it doesn't leak down for 20-30 minutes. So those 3 things, at the minimum, you better check. As a shop, you can also talk to the customer and say, hey, Mr. Customer, you know, I've noticed that this used engine that we got that maybe came with 80, 100,000 miles, if you're lucky, you might know that, has got a rear main seal that's seeping. You're going to want to talk to your customer and, of course, replace the seal now. A lot of people on this video are going to go, well, why don't you just reseal the whole motor? Sure, but it's more money. And, you know, you probably bought a used engine because you're a budget, you know, you have budget constraints. And if you're asking a shop to completely reseal a motor like this, it's going to add another $1,000 to your bill real quick. So these are all things that need to be considered. This is actually the second, isn't it? Yeah, the second, Bobby, this is the second motor that we got, because the first one we got, Bobby, tell me what was wrong with the first used engine.
The first one had something wrong with one of the exhaust valves. It wasn't closing all the way, and we had a low compression reading on it.
Yeah, so we did a leak down. We had low compression on it, wasn't it the middle?
It was the middle one, yeah.
Okay, so it was a middle hole on the used engine that we got from LKQ, a big supplier, probably the largest in the United States. And they got good stuff, but they don't know. They didn't know. It doesn't do that. I guarantee you, they didn't ship me that motor knowing, oh, this thing's got a bad hole. I hope they don't see it, because that would ruin a customer's relationship. And I know LKQ, I've been dealing with them for a long time. They try to give you a good product, then they stand behind it when they have a problem. But if we'd have put that motor in there and it would have had a bad problem with the hole, which it did, we'd have been like shooting ourselves in the head, because now we got to pull it out. So try to get your shop to run that motor in before they install it. So we had a bad hole, leaked it down, blowing out the exhaust, probably a burnt exhaust valve.
Exactly.
And so we said, send us another one. LKQ jumped up. We didn't have to do anything. The only time we've lost is loading it in our sim test machine to test it, which is a whole lot easier than pulling it back out of a car after a mechanic has spent 2 days putting it in. So we're going to test our second engine, and everybody do this with me. Come on, we're going to do a blessing on the motor. Put your hands on the motor. Come on, I'm serious. Oh, please, please, please. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. Let's test it.
Alrighty. Got our oil pressure gauge hooked up to the factory oil pressure sensor port. Spinning it at 300 RPM. See it start to build. And a little bit over 40 PSI at 400 RPM, which we're happy with.
So we're happy with that. Now we have put fresh oil in this motor and a brand new oil filter. We took the old oil filter out, and I'll show it to you, and we're going to look at that. That's another thing that I want to talk to you about. That is something that's like some reconnaissance. You can look inside that motor by looking at the oil filter and kind of check the condition of the patient's circulatory system, kind of like what a doctor would do if he could tell you how much plaque buildup you got. So we're going to look at that filter, and we're going to see, do we have any matter in it that's a concern to me? And see, there's no glitter or anything like that. No sludge. I mean, it's pretty dang clean, to be honest with you. So at the very least, make sure your shop, your mechanic, is checking the original oil filter in the engine for you. Okay, so now let's do a compression test on it.
You want to run it on your side?
Okay, spin it up.
Yes, sir.
And just give me 300 revs, and we'll just
300 for 30 seconds. That should be plenty. You ready?
Yeah. Stop.
Hold on.
Stop.
Yep.
We did a compression test on this hole, and we got a bad reading, but I was like, this hole's got compression, because I could feel the hose going, you know. But what it was a Schrader valve in the end of the hose. Grab me one of those hoses. So everybody, you know, you have a Schrader valve. They call them little air pump valve, just like you got in your car tire in these. In compression gauges, they get dirty, and when they get a piece of dirt underneath of them, they'll seep down and leak, and it'll give you a false reading. So I've always told my mechanics, if you get a false reading on an engine, the first thing you do is go grab your buddy's compression gauge and recheck that hole before you condemn it. And you want to verify that it's the same, and if it's not, look to your Schrader valve. Tip. Okay, let's crank this bad boy. Okay, and it's climbing, so we're 120 on that hole. All right, let's do another one. Let's turn it off.
Pass.
Give me another gauge. Okay, that front hole, maybe not so good. Go ahead. We're gonna try a bigger gauge here. This is my diesel gauge. It'll go to 800 PSI. Keep it going. We're good. 140, 140. Now, let me go back and check that front hole. You know, I know a lot of people that aren't mechanics watch my channel and they watch things like this, and I want them to understand, being a mechanic and, you know, ensuring that, you know, the job's done well, it's hard. You know, be kind to your mechanic. Tradespeople out there, this is a great business to be in. I love this job. I've loved it my whole life, but you got to do it right. That's why people hate it. They're not charging the right price, and they're not doing the right work. Let's look at this hole again. We're good. We're a solid 120 on that hole. Okay, let's see what the rest of the motor's doing. I'm okay with 120. Yeah. You know, and the motor's been sitting around for a while. We'll bore scope that hole too. We'll take a look at the hole. If I've got a hole that's kind of, you know, not as good as the rest of them, but it's still okay, what would you do? Put a bore scope down in it. Look at it. It could be just sitting a while. You know, it'll blow. It might have a piece of carbon on one of the valve seats or something like that, and you wouldn't want to condemn the motor over. I mean, if you're too picky, you'll never get a motor for your customer. But you want to be the right amount of picky. Let's go. That's right there, about 130. Let's check the other side now. Okay. We're going to mark out at 130. Okay. 120. And last hole. So you want to look up the specs in this. You can go to the internet to do that. But a direct injected car like this, it's got a supercharger on it, so you're going to have lower compression. Turbocharged with supercharged engines do not have the same compression ratio that a normally aspirated one would. Go ahead. So I'm thinking 120 to 140 is fine for this motor. Okay, this is 122. So the compression, I'm feeling okay about it. I'm going to go ahead and bore scope one of these holes. You know, the ones we're getting at 120. We're not getting anything lower than that. This one at 140 is kind of an outlier. It's a little higher. Could be some carbon buildup in a piston or something. We've got oil pressure. The last thing we got to do is pressure test the cooling system to make sure that we don't have, you know, blown head gasket or something like that. So far, so good. We're still going to pressure test the cooling system. On this one, it's going to be quite a nightmare because we've got to block off all these cooling hoses. But we're going to go ahead and do that. And then if it passed that test, we'll sleep a little better at night. And in that, that's worth a little bit of your time and an explanation to the customer about what you're doing to get the job done right.